There we go. Now we're live. So, good morning or good evening, Mr. Norton. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Gav. I mean, good evening. Yeah, evening for me. Yeah,
Yeah,
good.
this was a tricky one because
Yeah, I know.
the other side of the world in lovely Australia.
It's
So
always
you're in Melbourne, are you?
yeah. No, I'm in Melbourne, Australia, but yeah, no, I've been doing a few phone thingos with the US too, and it's always a juggle whether you're on Eastern Standard Time or Central or whatever. But anyway, we can figure it out. This is good.
Yeah, glad you're
It's
here
not,
now, and it's
not my
great.
bedtime yet, but close.
Nice. Because you're a very busy man. I can see on your upcoming projects. So Black Creek is one of them with Cynthia Rothrock, and then a lot of others. Oliver Grunier, Don the Dragon Wilson, and the cast list is getting bigger and bigger every day.
I know. I'm very interested. Oh, sorry about that.
No, sorry.
Don't know who that would be. I beg your pardon. No, you're all learning about the cast as I do. When I
Yeah,
see announcements come up, and I even see Benny the Jet, which
yes.
should be thrilling. So it's going to be interesting who all these actors play. Of course, I'm not sure whether they've added some more characters, but we'll see.
Yes,
Look,
it's one.
it's exciting. Cynthia came out to Australia. She did a little tour just recently, which you're probably aware. And we went out on a boat. Dan Delcher brought her out. He's got a friend who's got a boat. So we went out around a little bit of the Melbourne sort of bay, which was wonderful. And interestingly enough, Cynthia, I had seen the fundraiser and everything. I thought, oh, that's interesting. Haven't heard a word. And then when she got here, she says, "Oh, I thought you weren't talking to me. I've sent you all these texts." And of course, she showed me, and I said, "You probably just wrote those this morning. You're embarrassed." And but but there was, wanting to know if I would be interested in working in it with her. But I hadn't seen them, and I have no idea what happened to them. But she had been contacting me, so anyway, we talked about it, and yeah, there's always a lot of interest, I guess, from an audience that's seen the old China O'Briens and Raging On and 1 and 2 and all of those, Lady Dragon. I
Yeah.
think we did 8 movies together. So, to team up again it's always a fun idea. So
Well, you were, was it described as the Fred and Ginger of the martial arts world?
yes, Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers of martial arts films. It was, yeah. Well, it's a lot of movies, because we first met in Hong Kong, or at
Yeah.
least I heard about Cynthia when I was in Hong Kong working on my first Jackie Chan Sammo Hung movie, Twinkle Twinkle Lucky Stars. I heard about this blonde, blue-eyed American girl doing movies there, and I didn't know Cynthia at the time. So that's how the first sort of connection started. Then we ended up doing. Now I can't remember which came first. We worked on Magic Crystal,
Oh, yeah.
and Millionaires Express or Shanghai Express with Sammo Hung, and I'm not sure which one came first, but anyway, that happened, and of course that led to China O'Brien and other things in the US. So there you go.
Yeah. That's a good thing you get on with it then, isn't
Yeah,
it?
we're good buddies, and we know each other well, and that
Mm.
always helps.
Because I think 50% of the time you're the bad guy in one of our films, aren't you? So
Yes, I have been a good, I've been a baddie. Hey, listen, whatever. You know, as long as the character's interesting, and listen, we all know a lot of the low budget films, a lot of the ones I've done, which they're not necessarily world shattering stories or anything like that. And you hope that you get an interesting character. I'm more interested now because I've played so many, what would I say, cliche or stereotypical bad guys, and all of that.
yeah,
It's got to have an interesting character arc for me now because it's not like I need to do it, so I
yeah,
just need something that's got some ups and downs. Playing bad guys is good. They always say the problem with playing the bad guy is that you never get the woman, the lady,
of
and you
course.
usually die, or at the very least get the snot beaten out of you at the end. But you can almost do anything with the character because your job is to be unliked, so
Yes.
as a good guy, you got to be very careful of all your P's and Q's and everything else. But at the same time, you know, there's an old saying in movies now playing bad guys is that a bad guy never thinks he's bad. A lot of bad guys will justify what they're doing, what happened to them as a kid, whatever it is. And that's why I like a character that's got a semblance of humanity to him. I just don't think, well, I shouldn't say that there are, it seems some people that are just out and out evil. I mean,
Well, yes.
you know, but for a general purpose of everyday life, you see people you don't like or the way they behave, you know, I would imagine there's always a reason for that, and one should have an understanding. So again, in a character, it's nice to have a little bit of that side to the character again, where he doesn't actually see himself as bad. Okay. So we'll see.
Well, yeah, that's what Cynthia said when I spoke to her last week, that you were undecided if you were going to be the good guy or the bad guy in the new film. You had the option. So
yeah, I mean, we're tending toward the bad guy at this particular stage. So that I think that's the way it's going to go. There, his name is, and again, I you know, it's just I haven't had a chance to sit down and have a really good read again of the character, and you know, I would hope that we can have a good chat with the writer and the director and have a bit of input and sort of do a little bit of tweaking of the character just to make it suit and make it interesting for me to actually act. So, you know, yeah.
Because the Kickstarter campaign is down in the description, so people can sign up, and I'm on the many levels that you can choose to participate in it. You can even be in it and fight people.
Yeah, well, people can contribute and actually get to do a fight scene. Not sure how that'll work, but
yeah,
and you know, as you know, I'm hoping it's just a fun journey for whoever, because a lot of us, especially me, you know, we're of the age where we're not kids. We're not 30-year-olds running around and doing the hunky hero stuff. And, you know, whether it, and this is not putting anybody down because it is what it is, but Keith Vitale and Don Wilson and Cynthia and myself and Benny, we're not kids. So we're all of that age. But there is a certain audience that used to follow us in the 80s, 90s that still have a lot of interest, and God bless them. You know, that's nice. And you know, in a way it's not, but it's almost got a feel of an Expendables, a martial arts Expendables, with these characters all coming together on screen together. So that should be a fun you know, and of itself. So
yes, as long as it's entertaining, that's the main goal, isn't it? Yeah. Because like you say, but you're still doing stunts and as a stunt coordinator for a lot of upcoming new films.
Yeah, not so much stunts, Gareth. Listen, you know, you talk about age, but you know, when you're in a movie, especially as an actor, you're a product. You know, they have to sell the product. It's got a good-looking young guy, good-looking young girl, or whatever it is. And yes, there are older actors, like, you know, but you've usually got to be pretty hard and true, like a Harrison Ford or a Clint Eastwood or whatever. They can do whatever they like. Liam Neeson. So there's that, but yeah, I don't know. It's but my career, you know, the older you get, the less roles there are. I always joke you'll probably end up playing an aging gangster or somebody's father or grandfather, but that's okay, because that's life, you know. And in fact, I had a lot of offers of roles that I've turned down just because I said they're just not age appropriate. I don't want to play a character that should be played by a 30-year-old. You know, it makes no sense. So I think it needs to have that that bit of a senior citizen sort of head, you know, and then I'm happy to do it, because here's the other deal. You know, you look at someone like Stallone and all these people, you know, I'm 73 now, which is crazy, but I train every day. I can absolutely do the same sort of action. So, you know, I did a film with Liam Neeson called Blacklight a year and a half, 2 years ago, and we had a little Zoom call. And you know, Liam's very aware of playing an action hero still, and he's 68, and He was very relieved to hear that I'm 73 and still training, still kickboxing, still teaching Brazilian jiu-jitsu, on a daily level. And so he said, well, there you go. Well, it can be done. The age is not a disqualifier for you being able to be physically active and effective. And, I feel that with myself. I'm healthy. I work very hard at staying in shape and doing all the right things. So that's all good. You know what I mean? But again, you just want the character. That's why playing a dad. Look at Liam. He plays a dad. There's always a daughter problem or a niece or whatever. So people go, okay, I can accept that, and they go along for the journey. So a lot of it's in the writing, and again, it's how they depict the character.
Yeah. Now, do you think there's, like you said, a lot of love for the 80s and 90s action films now still? Is that because of the fake CGI, everything's just, everyone can tell it's not really happening on screen? But you look at something like you said, Millionaire's Express, and that whole ending, it's just the whole massive epic battle where you can see everyone's doing it for real.
Yes, listen, it's just a different world. And I think there is a yearning for going back to the 80s style. And I had a producer contact me a while ago, or through my agent. They said, they really want you to work in this and do the fights. And I said, why are they wanting me? And they said, well, they particularly want 80s style action. To which I had a phone call and said, well, what does that mean to you? What is 80s style action? They basically said, feet on the ground, that a punch actually knocks somebody down and actually hurts, rather than 500 moves to follow, So they're looking for that grounded action again, where the camera pulls back, where they've got people that are actually good at what they do. You can see if somebody kicks, where it starts, where it's end, without being in tight, shaking the camera up. There's some good choreography, but you just can't see what the hell is going on. Yeah. So I think there's a yearning for that. And what's a beautiful example of that is Mad Max. When we did Fury Road 10 years ago, whatever it was every stunt in that movie. Now, of course, there's CGI and effects and everything like that. Every stunt was real. There was a real stunt man putting his life on the line. And the same with the one we've just filmed. Now, again, yes, special effects and CGI and all of that. It's almost a necessity these days. And why wouldn't you use film magic and what you're capable of doing that helps you get a better product on film? But again, even with George, when you work with George Miller and he talks about action, he doesn't want anything superfluous. If somebody's got a weapon, he doesn't want them flipping it, because in his mind, well, why would you do that in actual battle and risk dropping it? Right. In other words, don't put on a show, get the job done. What would be the effective strike, punch, kick, use of a weapon or anything be to get the job done? And I think that's really a good definition of 80s style action. Albeit it's all fake anyway. I mean, we're making movies, racist, but you try and take people on a bit of a journey. So I like that. Like for me, you said stunts. I don't particularly do stunts as such. I do fight stuff. I work as a fight coordinator. Suicide Squad, the last couple of Mad Maxes, Dark Phoenix, these Triple Frontier, and I'm working more as a fight coordinator, putting the action together in that sense, and that's what I like doing best. Stunts per se, leave them to the younger dudes. They can pull up motorbikes, and I'll just applaud, because some of these kids are just ridiculously amazing. And
I know, because everyone, you look at the old school action stars, there's always how much damage done. So like Jackie Chan's got pages of damages done, but I couldn't find any reference apart from once Cynthia Rothrock scarred you. It was about the only piece of information about your damage.
Scarred me? You mean smacked me in the head with a sword? That was a magic crystal. Well, once again, Hong Kong typical. We're shooting 16 hours. We're both tired. I think I'm ducking. She thinks she's hitting in the right place and smacks me here. And I've still got the scar. And it went down like this. I had, 8 stitches. They took me to hospital. And I always laugh. I was back on set within a few hours. No anesthetic, because I didn't want my eye to swell up. And away we go. But that's the way they do it. But overall, I've been pretty damn lucky considering. But I pride myself on always being the best shape I can be going in, which is a key. Keep your body strong, muscles, tissues, tendons, everything good, and look after yourself. Aside from that, shit happens. It's not, you're doing a fight scene. It's not table tennis. So always the chance of something going wrong. But listen, I've broken toes, my finger, bone in my neck, all this, but I'm not complaining. At my age, to still be able to do everything I'm doing, I feel blessed. So no complaints. Just get on with the job. I feel very fortunate.
Yeah, because I must apologize that I did not recognize you when you were in Mad Max Fury Road.
My own wife didn't recognize me. I always laugh because obviously I had a shaved head, had a beard, and they. You saw all this makeup in the front. Well, that's supposed to represent the chrome bumper bar of a Ford pickup, right? Because we worship these old mechanical style motors and V8s. This sign you see in Mad Max represents the V8 engine. So this is the war boys and all of us. This is our, I don't know, Age of Allegiance or whatever. So there was a lot of that. But so I came back and my wife Judy was sitting in a restaurant, Clarendon Street in Melbourne, and I was coming across the road. I had just done some training and I copped a knee and I had a black eye. So I got a black eye, shaved head and a beard. I'm walking across and I get there and she says, "Sweetie," she said, "you look like an aging biker." Thank you very much. I love you too.
Yeah, nice.
But it was fun. Listen, I was traumatized. I don't know whether you know, but I did everything to try and keep my hair as as that character, because my character is the same as Charlize Theron's. We were imperators. We're almost like bodyguards, and I was the right-hand man or the bodyguard to the Norton, the main bag dude, played by Hugh Keys-Byrne, who unfortunately has left us, but. So I was getting in the George's ear about not keeping my hair, and then one day on set, because I said we're privileged, I would have hair anyway. I walked on set one day, and George sort of said, "Oh, Richard, come here." George is like the most lovely man. He's so quiet, and he's like a beautiful uncle, that you would have. So he takes me aside and he starts showing me a picture of Charlize, who was supposed to have had dreadlocks and everything and long hair. She was training for the film, realized how ridiculous it was having this hair everywhere, so she shaved her head and sent him a picture. That's how it started. So he's showing me this, and it's his way of saying, "Sorry, but there you go." And anyway, so off came my hair. I said, "I'm traumatized." I said, "I haven't had hair this short since I was born." And then, when I saw Charlize and met her, I said, "This is your fault. She grabs me by the cheek and goes like this. She said, "Oh, but look at that little face." Okay. But anyway, where we went. It was good not having to get the hair dryer out every day, in the shower. I thought, well, God, how come I got so much time?
Well, come back all right.
Yeah.
Because you filmed the Fury Road was it Namibia?
Namibia
for the second
is below South Africa. It used to be part of South Africa, right down south there. It was fantastic. I mean, my whole life I've wanted to go to Africa. It was a dream come true. Got to go to a couple of game lodges that a couple of the stunt guys' parents had. Went on horseback, riding in between zebra and giraffe and all sorts of wildebeest. No lions, of course, because we're on horses. We might have not got out of there, but got to play with little 3-day-old lion cubs. I mean, that made the whole trip worthwhile. I mean, the beauty of the job that I do is I do get to go to places I would never get to go to on my own steam, or don't get to, or don't make the time to. Suddenly you're there, and it's just an amazing opportunity. And I thought, I mean, I'm literally, Judy and I stroking these little lion cubs, and I said, who gets to do this, for God's sakes? It's such a unique opportunity, basically all coming out of the industry that I've worked in for the last 45 years. So very fortunate.
Yeah, because Cynthia was mentioning that on the Magic Crystal, she was working 8 days a week in on the film, and you had like 7 days off when you were
No,
filming in abroad.
she's not being truthful, Gareth. Do not,
Oh, right.
not believe a word that lady says. Oh, it's she was more lead, I was the main bad guy. It's always hard though, because when you do start the action, and I've said this in a million Zooms, and sorry to bore everybody hearing this again, but you are literally working 18 hours a day when you start shooting the action, often 7 days a week. So that's just what they do there. And I've often said, on Twinkle Twinkle, and I realized that, I was like, oh shit, I'm going to die. But then I thought, these guys do it, the Hong Kong stunties, and Jackie and Summer, they do this year round, year after year. And I said, listen to me, stop being a baby and complaining. At least I'm there for whatever amount of months. I can't believe just the hours that they put in to create what they create. It's because there's no unions and there's no work days and all of that. You get a little lunch break and a few noodles, and a little bit of chicken on top, and away you go. But
right.
But also, I think I did 5 movies there, and I also got a bit of advice from this Shoji Kurata, who was a famous Japanese actor who did 30 plus movies there. He always said to me, he said, if you want, Richard, let me give you advice. If you want to do these movies here, he said, don't say anything. He said, this is their set, their movies. This is the way they do it. And just do what you're asked to do. And I did. I would just shut up. I was, again, always in shape so I could do what they wanted me to do. And I went along for the ride. And that's the reason I got all that extra work. It wasn't because I could do anything no other martial artist can do. God, there's tons that are better than me, some not as good, but I'm able to get through. But it was mainly that I would just shut up and do as many takes as they liked. I would take the bumps and the knocks. Amazingly got on so well with Sammo Hung and Jackie, as I've often said, took me everywhere, showed me around Hong Kong. Sammo would invite me out to, different restaurants. So I was very fortunate that I ended up in what I would call the inner circle, which if you weren't in that, it would not have been a fun ride. So I think that's the reason they asked me back so much, just because they knew that I knew how they worked, what was expected, and basically get the job done. And plus, fortunately, Jackie always said I had the timing that just worked for him, which was what his action was all about. It was about timing. He said, it's not about how high you can kick fast and everything else. Is do you have the timing that works for his style and the choreography that they want you to perform. And by the way, it's not like I adjusted. It just happened to be that I had that timing through my Goju training, karate, kickboxing, whatever it was. So I was just fortunate to fit into that slot pretty well.
Yeah, because you're in 3 Jackie Chan films, and the bad guy in all of them.
Yeah, well, of course, I'm the I'm the foreigner with the blonde hair that comes in. Of course, you're going to get beaten up in the end, but that's okay. Somebody's got to do it.
Because was it on City Hunter? Was it Jackie Chan had a stand-in for the final fight in some scenes, or is that not correct?
Jackie?
Yeah.
Because everybody has stands in at some stage. Okay. To say that everybody does everything themselves it's not the case. Look, sometimes it's due to time, maybe 2 units shooting. Sometimes it's due to complexity and the danger of the actual piece of action. The other thing is, I might tell you that at one stage, on Twinkle Twinkle, I remember, when usually when I was back on, they would always want to put a double in. I said, Jackie, why are you doing that? My time is as good as any of your guys. And he literally said to me, he said, that's the only time they actually make good money is when they double one of us as a guilo, and so it's an opportunity for them. And I went, okay, I get it. It's fine. And that's the way they do it. Because, front on, of course, you're doing all the stuff. And by the way, you would thank your lucky stars that you weren't doing everything like some of those stunts and falls. Like, I had to come off a motorbike, and I really could do it, but why would I do it? I don't want to do that just for the sake of a stunt that a stuntman is there to do and gets paid to do. I don't want to take the job, and why would I? It's not necessary. You usually illusion a film. You know, and you'll notice the big one that is a big clip of Magic Crystal, the fight scene I was doing, you know, with these Cynthia and these another lady in that shot. But it's obvious that at one piece there was a stunt double. But the reason for that was that's when I was at hospital getting sticks put in my eye, and that's really why that happened, you know. And then I'm back on set and off we go again. But hey, you know, and when I was first doubled on I think on City Hunter, I forget his name, but you know, he's back on. He's got black hair, and they've got a little can of silver spray, and they went, shh. So it's got a little bit of silver, and that's my double. I said, for fuck's sake, that doesn't look like me. Oh, no, it's okay, you know, because it's all fast cuts and everything. Yay, okay. They doubled, you know, when we did Mr. Nice Guy that was shot in Melbourne, Australia, you know. You know, Andy Chung, who's you know, he came a little bit later. He was one of the stunties, but he's become a really prominent coordinator, second unit director. But he doubled Judy in that. My wife actually played my girlfriend, and I ended up throwing her in a mining pit and covering her over with all this dirt. Which Jackie and Sam on that day said to me, "Why you look so happy?" I said, "Well, look." Anyway, so but he's flying through the air, and I said, "For God's sakes, Andy, shave your legs. You got all these black hairy legs and everything like that." It's not my wife, but it's just funny, you know. The way they do it. Yeah, it's supposed to be her going into this mining pit.
Because but you started off, I guess, in the 70s. You were a bodyguard in the music industry. Is that?
Yes, I started in 1973. You know, Bob Jones, a friend of mine, I was chief instructor at the school, Zendo Kai it was called. And we got approached by an entrepreneur in 1973. By the way, Bob had a security business, you know, that I walked on doors at. I always laugh because at discotheques and pubs, every time you say discos, it really dates you. But anyway, clubs, you know. So I worked on doors, and anyway, we got offered the chance to look after the Rolling Stones when they came to Australia, and that's what started that. So I ended up being on the road for nigh on 25 years with ABBA, Fleetwood Mac, David Bowie, 8 years, sorry. Linda Ronstadt and James Taylor for 14 years. Stevie Nicks when she went solo. So on and on it goes. Joe Cocker, which was great. Mad Dogs and Englishmen, worked with him. Lovely, lovely man. So yeah, I had a fortunate career just traveling all over the world with rock and roll bands, and that was exciting. And again, the reason I got a lot of that work is because I didn't look like a bodyguard. You know, I looked like a member of the band, which they absolutely loved because there was no heavy big dude standing there like this. You know, I could just be them, and I was, you know, I was very well trained and able to take care of whatever needed to be taken care of. So that was a successful career, and part of the gig that spread like wildfire through the rock and roll things that I used to train them every day. Not everybody, you couldn't get everybody, but a lot of the acts like Linda, James Taylor, even David, you know, used to train them, give them physical workout, stretching, toning. And Rolling Stone magazine did an article on me once way, way, way back about this, saying that that some of these artists were coming off the road in better shape than when they went on a tour, which was almost unheard of at the time. So I guess that was an added bonus, you know, because people, you know, with a rock and roll bodyguard, yes, you're there for that worst case scenario, but in a sense, and this is not a derogatory sort of thing to say, but you're almost like a babysitter. You know, I'm like the hairdresser on the movie set that every day the actor sits with them. The hairdresser gets to know everything that's going on in the actor's life because just chat and they confide, you know, and that's the position I was in, to look after so many aspects of that artist's health, you know, how they felt, the shape they were in, all of that sort of stuff. And particularly just to give them security that I've got their back. They're good, you know, that they can be on stage. People can approach the stage, come around, we could go to a club or whatever, and they could just relax and enjoy knowing that I'm like that Alsatian dog that's sitting on the side, you know, ready to sort of show its teeth should you need to. And you know, God, to be on the road, I've often said in the 80s and 90s, it was just absolute extravagance, you know, in the way bands toured. And I got treated just like a member of the band. So I was very fortunate to experience it. And of course, you had your rough spots and everything, but not a lot, you know, because my job was to preempt everything. The last thing a band would want to see me do is punch somebody, you know. I often said it wouldn't be, you know, Richard Norton punches a fan, it'd be David Bowie's bodyguard punches a fan. It's not a good look for the band. So I had to be very aware of just, yes, preempting possible conflict and everything else, and dealing with that before it gets to the actual physical stage. That was the gig.
Because you're in the ABBA movie itself, isn't it? Aren't you, as the bodyguard?
And well, you know, what a gig, right, Gareth? You know, it was a tough gig, man. I had to train those two ladies by swimming pools and down the beach. They unfortunately wore very small bikinis, which I found quite disturbing. But do you know what I mean? Somebody had to do it. You just had to jump in with both feet.
Salute you, sir.
Just, yes, sir. I'm the man for the job. And they trained hard, you know. They trained hard. They were the loveliest people, you know, the members of ABBA. You couldn't get a more down-to-earth group. You know, the girls, no makeup when they're off stage. You'd expect them to be punching around, so grounded and so earthed. And it was an absolute delight to be with them. I just loved it. I loved that experience with ABBA.
Okay. So how would you rate the film The Bodyguard with Whitney Houston?
Oh, fantastic. Well, here's the deal. Strangely enough, I knew somebody working on the set of The Bodyguard. So I got invited down to the set. We were in LA somewhere. I suddenly hear this voice say, "Hey, Richard." I look around, it's Kevin Costner. So I'm like, how the fuck does he know me? Well, he'd been going out. Linda Ronstadt, by the way, for the younger ones, Linda, 10 Grammys. She was as big as Beyonce in a day with rock and roll, country and western, all that. Worked with Linda, as I said, for 14 years. And Kevin had been seeing somebody, whether it's somebody on the tour. Anyway, he was backstage. So I met him there and had to get him, as well as a few others, to leave, because there's a point they don't want anybody back there. So he remembered that. And so we had a chat, and it was kind of fun because, look, I don't want to get into detail, but a lot of the reason I ended up in the States was through Linda. You know, I lived with Linda for a couple of years, and you know, I was her bodyguard. So in some ways, it was always replicating the storyline of The Bodyguard. And we had a good chat, you know, and he was asking me questions about being a bodyguard and all that stuff. Now, he would know me from a grain of sand now, but at the time, it was just fun to have a little chat about that character, because in a way I was very similar. You know, I had a very similar experience. You know, I also did quit bodyguarding when I finally came to the conclusion that I'd been doing it 20 plus years. I hadn't been stabbed, hadn't been shot. I felt very fortunate because I had two friends in the States that did get shot and killed doing bodyguard work. Obviously, there's a lot of guns and everything in the US. So I thought, you know what, I've had a great run. I'd been doing movies whilst touring. You know, I started movies in 79 through Chuck. So I was still doing movies and doing bodyguard work. And I thought, you know, this is a good time to just say thank you very much. It's been a great career, and not push the envelope, which is what I decided to do. So I ended up all in one piece and having a great time, you know, on the road with sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
That's lovely.
Not for me.
Not all of three, anyway.
Yeah.
So AJ's movie place. He says, "Morning, gents." Good morning, AJ. Do you have a nemesis? Because he's one of my nemesises. So
he's your nemesis. Oh, right. Yeah.
Mr. Bones, hello. Great review. Thank you.
Bones, thanks for joining us.
Professor Maguinho, Nos, good morning. Good morning to you. Well, good evening. And Ben Grimm says, howdy. So howdy, Ben Grimm.
Yeah.
So I saw a reference to License to Kill in your Wikipedia. Is that relevant, or is that just someone put it in by mistake?
I don't even know what that's in. Tell me more.
It says, just references that you had a part or were involved in License to Kill, the 1989 James Bond film.
No, not true.
I thought so.
Nothing to do with it. Right. I would love it, but no.
Oh, a bonfire, that'd be good. So yeah, you did, was it almost 20 films throughout the 80s? So that's at least 2 a year. So and you say you would
sometimes 3. I mean, not even listed. It's probably about 80 movies now, all told. It's been great. Hey, listen, and a lot of them I wouldn't want to even see again, but I don't care. Like somebody once said to me, "Oh, do you wish you'd held out for better movies and more A-grade movies?" And I could have, but you know what? Back then, when you got a gig in a movie, you took it because you thought you're probably never going to work again in the industry. You'd have to have a lot of confidence to be able to say, no, I'm going to reject all offers until I get a major A-grade role in an A-grade movie. And here's the other thing too that I've said before. I realized even then that acting wasn't my passion. I really enjoyed it. I love doing it, but because it involved what my passion is, which is martial arts. I mean, yes, I did do some that had no action, but most of them were action-based. So I'm actually making a living using my martial arts, which is my passion, and getting paid for it, which really gave me the ability to spend much more time in the dojo or the training halls or whatever it is as a result. So it was a means to an end, because I also realized that if I was that passionate about acting, I would have been 6 days a week in acting school rather than training in martial arts. That wasn't the case. And again, I'm very comfortable with that because, like I said, I've traveled around the world. I've worked with Chuck Norris and Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung and Cindy, and all these wonderful people. I just got back, my wife and I just got back from a week with Chuck and his wife in Hawaii. I've known Chuck since 1978. I mean, think about that. He was best man at my wedding.
Right.
And, Chuck's, 83 now, and one never knows. We all have a finite amount of time left. So we really want to make the effort to go and spend time with an old friend. And it was just the best time. We didn't train. We didn't talk martial arts. We just had meals, went around the island, chilled at his house that he has in Kauai, one of the smaller islands. So nice. I thought that's what life is about. And that's as a result of the industry, So the quality of the movie, yes, sure, it'd be great to have worked in bigger ones. And by the way, I have as a fight coordinator, like you don't get bigger than the Mad Maxes and stuff and Suicide Squad, but as an actor, but I'm just very comfortable with that whole journey.
Yeah, because you had 2 roles in your first movie, The Octagon, didn't you? Is that you on the cover?
Yes, it is. Keo. Well, and he was supposed to be Asian. This is why the headdress and the darkened eyes, because in 78, when Chuck came to Australia, my partner and I brought him out. Chuck was demonstrating, and I was also demonstrating different kickboxing tournaments we were holding in different states in Australia, some of the first kickboxing matches there in Australia. And Chuck, as a result, could see that because I was demonstrating with Sai, which I used an octagon and different weapons. So, of course, when I ended up going to the States in 79 and called Chuck up, went to his house, started training, he was in, early pre-production for Octagon. Because he knew I could handle all those weapons, he asked me if I would play his nemesis, which, of course, I jumped to, and here I am on a set with Simon and Philip Reed, Tadashi Yamashita, all these amazing martial artists. And I'm like, oh, my God, how good is this, So that's what started it all. And there was 4 of us that did all the stunt work not all, most of the stunt work, going up the side of the hotel as ninja and all that. There was 4 of us that did all of that because obviously you couldn't see our faces and you didn't know who was playing the role. And then Longlegs was this terrorist with my platinum blonde hair and everything.
Yeah, yes.
By the way, it was very stylish back then.
It was. I had the same cut.
Yeah, I know. But there you go. So that was the start of it. And, as you know, I did a few movies with Chuck. Then I got offered a lead or the chance to audition for Force 5 with Benny the Jet Urquidez and Joe Lewis and a wonderful cast. And so off I went, just getting offered, roles by people like Roger Corman and those sort of companies to do films in the Philippines and Thailand and all around the place. And as I would say, it's what a fantastic journey it's been.
Yeah, it was I watched Force 5 again yesterday, and it still holds up as a great action film.
Listen, and Gareth, it is what it is. You just want to be just simply entertained. Sit back, can of beer, and guys go, yeah, kick his ass, whatever. I mean, you don't want a convoluted plot that takes a rocket scientists to figure it out. It is what it is. The whole films then were written with the excuse of having X amount of fight scenes and or explosions. In fact, a lot of producers would buy for different countries way back, or distributors. They would often base it on how many fights are in the film and how many explosions and how big were the explosions. And that's how they would decide whether to buy it for their particular territory. So, hey.
I've got a question from Ben Grimm. How was it working with Jackie Chan on Mr. Nice Guy or City Hunter?
Both are great. Like I said, I was very fortunate to have a really, really nice relationship with Jackie. I think he respected me, as I said, that I would just do whatever they wanted and not complain and carry on. Like I said, fortunately, because you've been working in a circle, you're in a foreigner on a set in Hong Kong, it could be pretty tough, But, the thing I'd say about Jackie is, which everybody knows, there's nobody more passionate and more after excellence than Jackie. So everyone always says to me, it must be so much fun doing a movie with Jackie. Well, it's the least amount of fun, because it's a bit like I've often said, when people meet a comedian, they expect the comedian to be funny all the time, and they're not. They're very serious about what they do at their shows and, being comedians and everything else. And Jackie's the same. Yeah, I mean, he is work, work, work. There's no stuffing around or laughing around. And the thing I respected about Jackie was, if there was a light stand to be moved or a broom to sweep up some stuff, he's the one out there on the floor doing it with everybody else. Like, it was a terrific example of a work ethic, on a movie set. And of course, work ethic as far as being in front of the camera. The guy just never stops. So I learned a lot by watching someone like Jackie, and of course the incredible Sammo Hung, who I've said and I'll say again is the most incredible action director and performer I've ever worked with, considering his size and everything else. I mean, he's just unbelievable. But again, I had the fortunate place of working with two of the greatest action stars of action movies,
Yeah. Because, you had to fight Sammo in Twinkle Twinkle, didn't you?
Yeah, which I was apparently supposed to do the main fight scene with Jackie, but he'd injured his shoulder blade in another thing, and hence that changed. But man, what a great experience again doing that. And shit, what an eye opener! I've been repeating some of these stories I've said in other Zooms, but on the way over, I'm thinking, 10-hour days, and I'll get to do this and this and this. Well, shit, as I said, 18 hours a day, and it's all the choreography is what they want you to do. They don't care what you want to do, So you just have to imitate everything. No rehearsal other than on camera. They roll camera and away you go. 34 takes on a lot of things. So again, to say it's fun is not the word. The fun part is, like City Hunter was very much geared toward a younger audience, and even normally Jackie would cater to, with the style of movie. And it's only when I went and saw a screening in Los Angeles, and I was just cracking up, because obviously I didn't get to see a lot of the other stuff they shot that I wasn't in. And it just cracked me up. It was just such a fun ride, because Jackie was the one that said to me, he said, my movies, he said, this is how smart he is. He just absolutely knew his audience, which is the younger kids. because said the kids like my movies. The parents will take them 2 and 3 times. You know, he said you'll never see gratuitous gore, violence, or sex in my movies, and you don't. You know, and that was a lot of his formula. It was just it was physical fun. He had every silent movie made with Buster Keaton, the Three Stooges, and Charles Chaplin. And he said he wanted people to be able to turn the sound off and just watch the physicality of the choreography and just have a great time. And if you look at a lot of it, that's it. What it is now. Now, don't get me wrong. It did morph into other things, like when he did Karate Kid and all that. He showed, and Samo showed also in different movies of how good they are as dramatic actors. You know, but still, I don't think you would ever see, you know, the blood gushing out and all that. And that was a key, because the other thing that Jackie also mentioned, he realized that he was like the follow-on from Bruce Lee, of course, dying. And he knew nobody could be another Bruce Lee, so why would you even try?
Yeah.
Which is, I think, part of the decision to go more of the comedic, physical action route. Albeit, again, he's done stuff that are also very serious and incredible. But I think the majority of the work, you just go in and go for a fun ride, you know?
Yeah, because I guess on City Hunter, you didn't even though it's on a cruise ship, I guess it was all set. You never actually went anywhere on a real ship.
That was all shot in Tokyo Harbor. We went to do that. We shot some of it in Hong Kong, but all the exteriors, of course, were on an actual cruise ship, and half the ship was available for people to just people to just go for a cruise. And it was basically half full with Japanese schoolgirls, you know, who were obviously worshiping Jackie. And this is the other thing I remember about Jackie, is sometimes he would spend 3 hours just standing taking pictures with these schoolgirls, you know. I thought, well, how nice is that? He could have just disappeared to his cabin and not been around, but he spent the time. Again, very smart. He understood his audience, and you know, and how he needed to be, you know, for them. And I believe that was very sincere. But it was great being on Tokyo Harbor and the ship. Yeah. So what can I say? And again, this is just some of the stuff in City Hunter. You go, that is ludicrous, but funny. And of course, that's where I met Wong Jing, who ended up wanting me for Magic Crystal. Or vice versa. I might have done Magic Crystal first. I get mixed up with the dates, but one or the other. But the fact that I'd worked with him and he knew me and what I could do, that's why I got to do at least the 2 movies with Wong Jing at the helm.
Okay. With Mr. Nice Guy, did you get to go home at night as it's in Melbourne, or too busy working?
No. No, you're either in Hong Kong or in that case in Tokyo.
Oh, is it?
No, it's too far.
In Melbourne.
No. Did you say, what did you say, Mr. Nice Guy?
Mr. Nice Guy.
Oh, I apologize. Sorry, I'm still on City Hunter, you know, being Tokyo Harbor. No. Yes, I did it when we shot in Melbourne, yes, because a lot of it was shot in the center of the city. And I live in South Melbourne, which is 8 minutes out of the center of the city. So that was great. But some of it was all in a place called the Hunter Valley in New South Wales near Sydney. It's wine country. That's where the big house was, my big Jean Carlos mansion, and the big mining truck, you know, which eventually demolished the house. They built that whole house from scratch, you know, with specifications just to suit that truck being able to go through and destroy it. And the funny thing is, halfway through the movie, I was told all Jackie knew that he wanted to do something and wreck something with a mining truck, and they had no idea how it would fit into the story. So as we were halfway through, they figured it out, and there's the end result. And I was also supposed to have a big fight with Jack in the end. If you remember, I get hit with the bull bar of the mining truck. They're looking down at me. I wasn't even there. I'd already gone home because they were already 2-3 months over budget.
Oh, right.
And unlike Hong Kong, in Australia, you have unions, you have hours and everything else. And it was just way too expensive. And the producers basically said, that's it. Hence, no fight scene. And I was a bit disappointed because I said to Sam, I said, God, why use me if you're not going to have a big fight scene with Jackie? So you had that in the house, you know, with the rubber, the elastic bands.
The rope holding him back.
And it was supposed to lead to me, John Kyler, being this, gangster like smartass. Everyone would have liked to have seen me get my ass kicked, but unfortunately, we ran out of time and didn't get to do it. But again, great fun to be able to actually shoot something like that on home turf.
Yes, I bet.
And how about my hair in that? Talk about Mad Max. What about that? The slick back hair that I had and that pinstripe suit. I was on set when I first wore that. Jackie came up to me. He says, "Oh, fucking horrible suit." I said, "Well, you're the producer on this. Do something about it." Of course, and the slick back hair and the cigar. And I said to Sam, I said, "Can't I just look like an every ordinary bad guy?" No. He slick your hair back. And they wanted me to continually puff there on the cigar, which left me quite faint numerous times. But
stogie.
Yeah, but once again, you realize if you're not willing to just go for that fun ride and be a caricature, you just didn't fit in that sort of movie. It's not a so-called serious drama. So off we go.
Right. Nos is asking, is there a job you wish you did but never accepted for one reason or another?
Don't know. Pro-physical media. No, I bet there was. It's probably the best answer is what we'd alluded to earlier, that if I had said no and been available, there were a few projects, had I been in LA, that I would have absolutely had a good chance for. But to be specific and name one specifically, no, I can't. Don't know.
Well, is it true you were up for Lethal Weapon, the Martin Riggs role?
Are you serious?
That's what's in your trivia. Apparently, was considered. I guess considered.
Actually, I was, Gareth. I turned it down.
Okay.
No. I listen. How wonderful would that have been? It's so funny when it ends up online, especially Wikipedia, because I don't write it. You know what I mean? Stuff shit just shows up. I tell you, I saw a clip somebody sent me. There was a montage of action scenes that I'd done filming, talking about my career and a bodyguard. This very Richard Norton was They actually talk about me working with David Bowie, getting in a fight with somebody who ends up dying in hospital. And I was interviewed by the police, but they didn't really question me too much because they knew me in my movies. Oh my God. So I've supposedly killed somebody as a bodyguard, and one would think I would know about that had it happened. But hey, maybe it did. Maybe it's good that I don't know, but just some of the stuff that goes online, and
you can't control it.
No, and it's ludicrous even trying to defend it and do everything else. It is what it is. And,
Benjamin wants to know what's the most dangerous moment you felt on a set or a movie scene.
There's been a lot of those, but especially the Mad Max sets, because you've got high-powered vehicles like that Giga Horse that I was in with the Norton had twin V8 engines. Everything worked. Those things were ridiculously powerful, and when you were going in those big armadas, luckily I was in the Giga Horse, which is the Morton's, main thing. So we were more in the front when we're chasing after the big tanker, but.
Yeah.
For everyone behind, with the amount of dust in the Namibian desert, you couldn't see 10 feet in front of you, So if somebody fell off or whatever, the only way you'd know is like chunk as you ran over them, or you ran into the back of somebody. So that's pretty hairy stuff, The other things I would say that probably, which I laugh about now and I probably shouldn't have, is a lot of the films I did in the Philippines. Because when I worked with Siria Santiago, who's a legendary Filipino director who did hundreds of movies for Roger Corman, Tony Maharaj, blah, we would literally just make up stunts on the spot, ridiculous stuff, like kids in a sandbox. And I look back now and go, how the hell am I still alive? Like I remember I was with Cynthia and we were in a car that had to drive in amongst these explosive pots. They dig them into the ground, and as you drive over, they'll explode. Now, normally speaking, you have dust bags and everything else, and it's all very safe. These were just bags full of petrol, with a wire, and they ignite them. And heaven forbid you get the timing wrong, And, you know, I was on the set, and I won't even mention movie, but the special effects guy I was only probably, I don't know, 50 feet away. The director said, can we do another take? He's resetting the charge, and he's just sitting around this little hole, you know, again, for people that they dig a hole, cover it all up, and then it appears like a grenade's hit it or whatever the hell it is. And next one is this big boom. Well, he blew his leg off. A helicopter came, you know, ambulance came, helicopter ambulance took him to hospital. And he unfortunately passed away the next day.
Wow.
So to say that sets aren't dangerous is not at all the case. You never do know. And, you know, I did a thing on a waterfall in, I think it was called Not Another Mistake. I always laugh when I say not another mistake, but we made it anyway. But, you know, there was a waterfall, and there was a scene where I'm supposed to, we had a big wire, and I said, it'd be great if I can just rappel down this wire and firing my AK-47 or AR-15, whatever that was, as I'm going across. And then we had to figure, well, how do I do that? And I said to one of the guys that was handling stunts, just fill up a bag and send it across, because I want to make sure the wire doesn't do this and I get stuck in the middle, because this was a couple of 100 feet above a waterfall.
Yeah.
It was just rocks and nothing else.
Yeah, nothing else.
Gets the bag across. Of course, it goes and stops. I said, listen, no, sorry, it went across. I said, no, but you need to put my body weight, not, you know, 20 pounds of weight and everything.
Yeah.
It didn't need to be tight. Anyway, the only thing that I took off my military belt and I clipped it over the wire and I stuck my elbow through it and grabbed the belt. So there's no safety harness, there's nothing. And if that had unclipped, I mean, there's no way I would have lived through that. And off I went, shooting the gun. That was fun. I mean, you know, it was just, you just threw caution to the wind in those days. You just had fun devising whatever you could devise. And again, we survived, but there's every chance I couldn't have, you know, with some of the stuff we got up to. Even guns. I mean, all the weapons we used in those Filipino movies, they would just pay the local colonel at a nearby army base, and you would have live weapons, anything.
Yeah.
One day, we used to go to the set on one film I shot there. We'd take a different route every day, because oftentimes the film trucks would get ambushed, because they had what they called NPA, or New People's Army, which were communist insurgents, which were really just locals that had been given a bit of money and a bit of food and carry a gun. You know, everybody's got some sort of insurgency in their country, I guess. Look at America. Yeah. But so we had to go to a different way because we didn't want to get ambushed, you know. And we got to the set one day and a truck pulled up and they were all nervous because this guy with a grenade launcher had stopped them. The guy said to basically the film truck people that luckily we got close enough and realized it was a film truck, because we were just about to blow you off the road. And even so, with the real weapons, they wanted them because they were real weapons, you know. Of course, we had blanks and everything, and I laugh because at one stage I'm running through this piece of land that's got a big wire fence with private property, keep out, military, and I'm dressed in military fatigues, just running along with a gun. And I said, shit, I don't even have live weapon, you know, live ammo. I said, I could easily get blasted here, but that's kind of the stuff we got up to. Fun.
Yeah, because not another mistake. It's supposed to be, it's NAM, isn't it? As the abbreviation for NAM. And
yes, very good.
Your missing action Rambo film.
Yeah, you know, it's funny about that. I think it was that way here. We talk about my lovely wife, because I was playing a character called Bradley Cooper. How about that, right? Very similar. And, you know, dressed in military fatigues and gun straps and everything else. So I came back from work and Judy says, are you allowed to keep that costume? I said, what do you mean? Well, you allowed to maybe, you know, bring it home? And I said, well, probably. Why? And she said, well, then you could be Bradley Cooper instead of little old Richie Norton.
Oh.
Who does that? So it was pretty fun. But just heaps of fun. I love the Filipino people. Were just so great to work with. You know, I did a lot of movies. I used to have billboards around with me, up on the thing. It was just a tremendous amount of fun.
That's nice. Because was it Equalizer 2000? You had a very special weapon in that one. Was there?
And you know what? You know what the truth of it is? Everything on that weapon worked. It had a double barrel shotgun, an Armalite. Everything worked because the local armatures are made it from scratch. That's the amazing part. So yes, it looks like a fictional weapon, but would actually fire live rounds. Not that I did, of course. So. No, that was great. That was, I think, the first one was Sirius Santiago, and got to work with Corinne Wall, who was Penthouse Pet of the Year. Thank you very much.
Nice.
And I tell you a funny story about that. I hope Judy can't hear me, but I was sitting in Roger Corman's office and waiting to meet him. And for those who don't know, Corman was just king of those lower budget movies. He did movies with John Wayne, believe it or not, and Sylvester Stallone, all these people. But I'm sitting and waiting, and this young lady sits next to me and sort of taps me. Oh, hi, are you Richard? And I look around, and it's Corinne. And Corinne has the biggest breasts you would ever see. She's in this skimpy little outfit, and I was like, oh my God, and anyway, we end up, she said, oh, I'm auditioning for the role of, whatever the character's name was. And that was great. She was so fantastic to work with, just a lovely, lovely person. But I remember, I shouldn't be telling these stories, but I went to my acting coach and I said, Zena Provendy, her name was, who used to be Chuck's acting coach. She used to be head of MGM's she taught people like Gregory Peck, believe it or not. She's long since passed away. But I said, Zena, I said, I'm doing a film and this beautiful young lady, she got the biggest breasts. I mean, how do I do that without being, how do I act without being distracted? And she says, well, like if you see somebody that's maybe got a deformed arm or whatever, you just respectively just don't notice it. Don't pay attention to it. That was her advice, working with Corinne. Did
it work?
Yeah, it was great fun. We had she was just fantastic. So we had a good time. See, you think this job is easy, Gareth. I told you.
I know.
A lot of jeopardy in what I do.
Cheers for the suffering you went through.
That's right.
You worked for both DC and Marvel movies. So Nossa's got a question. If you were asked to be in one, because you did the fight scenes and such, would you play a superhero or a super villain? And what powers would your character have?
Well, probably a super villain, just because again, that's the fun. You can just go to town with anything and be as disasterly as you can possibly be, God, how good would it be to even have a choice of playing one or the other? But anyway, given that I was, yes, the powers that I would want to be very, it'd be almost like a Batman. I wouldn't want to be able to fly and do all that sort of stuff. I would want my powers to be almost superhuman as a Batman, because, he had all these little repellers and all these sorts of things and throw things around, but he was still basically like a superhuman. And that's the sort of powers that I would want, because that's more than what suit me. I'm not a wire person and flying around and doing, aerial kicks and all that sort of stuff. It's just not my style. I'm more of a boots on the ground, very reality-based type of martial artist. So they're the sort of powers that would suit me best if I was to play a character like that.
Okay. Echo Zero from the US, still up at this time or just woken up. I've just picked up the documentary on when they were making all those movies in the Philippines. Oh, that's going to be interesting. There's a lot of stories in that one then. Yeah,
nice. Again, great fun, great time. What can I say? And there's a lot of great movies that have been made there in the Philippines. Look at Coppola did his stuff. They're just wonderful crews. So good stuff.
Yeah. So you worked on both Suicide Squad films.
Yes.
Were they very different in the making of and the fight choreography you were having, or is it because it's a Warner Brothers?
No, well, it can't be too different because when you do fight choreography, you always have to you have to give a license to what those characters do, and you get a backstory. You know that Harley Quinn, for instance, is, you know, like a gymnast, acrobatic, dance background. Again, not superhuman, and just a little street fighter. So she has a gun and she has a baseball bat. So everything has to revolve around that. Meaning that if, you know, I often say, if you suddenly Harley Quinn did a jumping, spinning heel kick, you'll go, how would she know how to do that, if that makes sense? So characters are already written with their back life and stories, and that's what you need to be guided by. I mean, there's a lot of choreographers will choreograph stuff that is unrealistic. And I used to say there's some where you see the drama stops, then there's an action fight scene that's got every trick in the book, and then the drama continues, but it doesn't fit necessarily with story and character. And that's what we had to do with Suicide Squad. You know, like Will Smith's character, you know, Deadshot, he's just amazing, you know, marksman and everything else, good fighter, hand-to-hand combat, and that's it. And then you get some that have extraordinary powers. So you are bound by that. If you're doing your job, you need to be bound. It needs to be, even though it's still fanciful, you know, and reasonably farcical as compared to real life, there is still a Bible for each character and what they could realistically be able to do as that character and the history they have. But what a joy working on those, you know, and James Gunn was just fantastic to work with on the last one. So friggin' creative. And John Cena working with people like him, such a professional, you know. God, you know, I often say to people, there's a reason the Margot Robbies, John Cena's and all these have the careers they have. It's because of their level of commitment. They just so commit. It's not about a payday. Of course, they get paid lots of money, but there's a lot of actors I know that basically show up and sleepwalk their way through. But people like that, Scarlett Johansson, I often say was the same. You know, I trained them for months before those films, and they would show up without fail and commit. You know, they wanted to be the absolute best version of themselves, which I just thought the world of. And I often said to them, if you're willing to give that much, I'll give you 100%. And my job is just to make you look the very best you can look on screen.
That's awesome. All right, I've got one more thing to talk about, and then I'll let you go because it's late in the evening. Under the Gun from 1995. You produced that one, and that's a good film.
I'm glad you brought that up. No, you know, that's one of my favorite because obviously it was shot in Melbourne, and Paul Curry was probably more the producer. I produced along with him. I was doing the lead. Brought Kathy Long out, who was a world kickboxing champion of world kick. But the thrill was that I had so many of our local martial artists in it, friends of mine. Sam Greco was a ex-K1 world champion and kickboxer and everything else. So it was just so much fun. And of course, Tino Seberano, who was my very first karate instructor, my first sensei. I started with Tino in the mid-'60s, believe it or not. And, wonderful man. We're still in fact, I'm seeing him this coming Thursday, still dear friends. He started me in a whole martial arts journey. So the opportunity to have him and do a fight, he plays an accountant in it, you know, and even do a fight scene was just fantastic. So no, it's very dear to my heart. We made it on a shoestring, but hey, again, just suits the genre that we were targeting.
Well, yeah, it's just like one location, wasn't it? It was inside and outside of a club, and there's no need to go anywhere.
Iron Fist was called in a lot of territories. Under the Gun was our title, but you know, as usual, a lot of times you do films, they'll change the title depending on the country and what they think appeals to the audience.
But yeah, it was a great like crime thriller, and then the fight scenes, and then carries on to the crime thriller, and then it was very enjoyable, that one.
Thank you.
But the only thing is the bit where there's some fat laying around in a wok outside, and then you decide to put your feet in it and then set them on fire to have a fight with.
You know how that came about. You've been around a lot. Bay Logan is my karate instructor's stepson.
Right.
He's based in Hong Kong. He's written lots of scripts and directed and produced stuff and worked with Jackie Chan. He came up with that idea. We thought, what's some little just funny little gag, and he was the one that suggested setting my feet on fire. So there you go. That's where that came from.
It's a very good scene. Very dangerous, I'd imagine, because of the fire. If you're standing up, the heat's going to come up. But so
up your pant leg, right?
So yeah, there's the link for the Kickstarter for the one of the projects. I'm guessing you've got other irons in the fire that you're working on.
I do. I actually have 3 different leads that have been offered to me, and very excited about all of them. Now, if you ask me when, God knows. In my industry, you say yes, yes, and yes, and you hope thing sticks to the wall. But there's a friend of mine here in Melbourne that's producing one that is called Last Call. He's an ex-cop who now owns and runs a bar. Lots of fights in it and everything else, but a great character. So hoping that goes ahead. Yes, there's a few product. There's a director friend of mine, Adrian Carr, who I've known forever, who's coming out to direct a film here in Australia, it involves Indigenous Australians and everything else, and there's action in that. Okay. So I'm going to work and help him along with that as far as the action goes. And there's a couple of other leads. One film in LA that hoping goes ahead. The reason I'm not expanding on expounding or because you know what it's like. You can talk sometimes, and everyone then says, "Oh, how did that film turn out?" And a lot of times it never even gets to happen. But God willing, they will go ahead, because I'm my passion at the moment, with whatever time I have left in this industry, is to act and be in front of the camera, and as I said, play age appropriate characters. Of course it'll be action involved, because that's still what I do. Nobody's going to be interested in seeing me do a purely dramatic role, I would imagine. So yeah, so the year is looking good. What can I say? The journey continues, and very, very excited. Life is good, Gareth. Life is good.
Lovely. Yeah. Glad to hear it. So yeah, we'll end it there. So thanks for joining me.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on, and hi to everybody out there in Action Land, and hopefully enjoyed the chat. And some of it you would have heard before, but hopefully there's something new. I get a little, so many things I can relate over and over again. But there you go.
All right. Thanks, sir. You take care then.
All right.
See you later, everyone.